Welcome to Driven by Dreams. Today's guest is someone whose story is as powerful as it is inspiring. Jeffrey Kendall Sapp is a retired U.S. Navy captain, a cancer survivor, and a passionate advocate for research and resilience. After being diagnosed with one of the rarest and most aggressive forms of blood cancer and being told multiple times he wouldn't survive, Jeffrey defied the odds, and today he's using his second chance at life to ignite change. From leading in uniform to speaking on stages across the country, he brings a unique perspective on leadership, hope, and the future of healthcare. Join us as we explore Jeffrey's journey of courage, grit, and impact. Hi, Jeffrey. It's great to meet you.
It's great to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure can. I'm a Navy guy. 30 years in the Navy. I commanded warships. I had six of them I commanded. Um, they call me a surface warfare officer because I go to sea for my job, as opposed to submarines and fly in. I work for a living and going to sea. Um, I after my 30th year, or during the 30 years, I got into motivational speaking. I got into helping people, got into counseling and leadership, and that's kind of led me down the path for the entrepreneurship that I ended up where I ended up. The After I retired, I went out and did some work as a vice president of a nonprofit. Then I worked with like Booz Allen Hamilton, a few other large organizations. I worked for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, which is really neat. I was a leadership advisor to the Small Business Administration, again, back to the entrepreneur side of me, um, and did a few other things. It was pretty much uh, a nice career. I'm having a nice second career, and my goal is to continue having a nice career and be able to help other people in what they're doing.
You've worn many hats: Navy captain, entrepreneur, speaker, and advocate. So, could you walk us through how your leadership background evolved into an entrepreneurial mindset and when you first decided that I want to be an entrepreneur?
That's pretty simple. While in the Navy, you meet a lot of people, you do a lot of things. And one of the things, particularly being a captain of a ship, you have to be able to listen to your people, guide them, help them along, give advice, and take advice. And in the process of doing all that, I found that when I transitioned to the private sector, there are people in the same situation where you can give advice, they want advice, they're looking for a lot of leadership advice. And simply because I was in the Navy for 30 years and I commanded the six ships, and I've been a chief of staff of several organizations, uh, they think I know what I'm talking about. And I kind of do. So when I was talking to a fellow about some challenges he had in his business, I just off the cuff said, would you think about doing ABC? And he goes, oh, no, I didn't think about that. And basically I said, well, what you need to do is to put on a different hat. E- How would Margaret Thatcher approach this problem you're dealing with? How would Jimmy Carter approach it? How would Barack Obama? How would anyone other than you approach it? And that got him to open up his mind and looked at multiple angles and actually found a good solution on his own. That led me to believe that maybe I can help people in the system in that area of leadership. So I opened up. I started doing consulting, business consultant, and it fell into leadership consulting. Mixed a little bit of motivational speaking in there, business leadership motivational speaking, because if you have a good crew, but you don't have them motivated or you can't inspire them, then you're working uphill for the most part. And people are just there because they're just there, doesn't get it. So I dedicated myself to trying to help, start up with the CEOs and the businesses, and that kind of took me cascaded down into the entrepreneurship, and I still do that quite a bit, mostly on the leadership side, helping people uh, find their purpose, pursue their goals, and to increase their revenue. The bottom line when it comes down to it.
How do you help people find their purpose, especially when they're unsure about it themselves?
I ask them what do you want to be? And that starts the conversation. Normally they want to make money, they want to be rich, they want to do this and that. But if you ask that question several times, it gets down to closer to what they really feel, what they really want. And so by just asking them questions and getting them to answer, and this is one thing important, I'm sure you know some you other entrepreneurs, you do not come with the answers. You may have them and you may have a real good feel, but if I give you the answer and you just take it and run, then no one's learning. Because once I'm out of the scene, you would not know how to pursue your goals. So I got into it by just asking them questions. And if they started to zig when I think it should zag, you just say, well, what do you think about ABC? That's a very good point. But what about XYZ? Have you thought about it from this way? Like I said, put on a different hat. Have you thought where your shortcomings are and what you need to do or can do to shore them up? Um, who do you have as your support team? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a role model? Do you have people that you can depend on that can help keep you guided? The worst thing anyone can do is set out on their own and say, "I got it. I don't need any help." That's the number one mistake I've seen in a lot of folks. So through a series of questions and give and take, it kind of gets them focused on the area they want to get focused on, and then they only ask, "Well, what should I do?" And the question is, right, what should you do? And they start thinking. And the biggest part is that they haven't had the opportunity to sit back, pause, and do some deep thought. A lot of them have. There's been some that have been outstanding with that. But once you get them in the thinking game, they start to teach you things that you didn't know. And it works out like a champ.
It's pretty amazing.
Yes.
Did you have a mentor in your life who helped you with that?
Ironically, I have a mentor. That's my older brother. My older brother is a cut to the chase type of guy. And whenever I have a problem or before I ever signed the contract, I would reach out to him and ask him what he thought. I'd ask him, how should I do this? How should I approach it? He was a police officer for 34 years, has no problem with telling you what's on his mind. And he has no problem with telling me when I'm doing something goofy, or he'll say, "Oh, you stupid man, come on, you can't do that." So bouncing that back and forth off of him really, really helps me. I also, the admirals that I worked for, I'm still in connection with a lot of them, and they are, I call them semi-mentors because I don't bother them all the time because they have their lives they're going on with now. But yeah, I can get on the phone, I call and say, "What do you think about this?" And my biggest question is, how would you handle it? And then what would you recommend? Uh, a lot of times they will say, "Well, what would you recommend?" That's a sap tactic. If I tell them what I want to do and they go, "Are you stupid?" No, they say, "No, that's a good, but have you thought about this?" And that mentoring has kept me on track. And I would say I'm successful in my business and what I'm doing. Um, I'm working with the Department of Homeland Security through an organization called FedTech, where we take um, inventions from the laboratory and we commercialize them. And basically, we have to do the research and see if there's a need and if you want. And we're in the midst of doing that right now for a very, very large one. And that's my biggest deal now. And that has a lot to do with the entrepreneur spirit. Um, but yeah, the mentors have helped quite a bit. And again, the thing is, you're not listening if you're talking all the doggone time. And if you are listening, you got to make sure it's a difference between listening and hearing. Hearing is what most people do all the time. When the baby's born, they do things like this to see if the baby can hear. It can hear. It's not listening. When you listen, it's a formula. You have to sense something's going on. You have to interpret what's going on. Then you have to evaluate what kind of response you want to do, and then you revalue, then you respond from here, or from here. That's listening. And then when they come back to you, again, you don't just hear, you listen to what they said, and then you evaluate it and think. And that is a great way to teach people how to sharpen their listening skills, and it actually improves a lot of folks. But that difference between hearing and listening is the biggest mistake I found a lot of people don't understand. So that's one of my mainstays.
Are there any other skills you believe that a leader should have to keep their team motivated as well as stick to their purpose?
Patience, patience. When you talk with people and you have an idea in your mind about what you want to do and the way to go, if you ask their opinion, then silence yourself, be patient, and listen to them. And when they say something, don't be quick to say, oh, no, no, we can't do that. We tried that before. No, are you crazy? No, you need to listen to them. And, sometimes they come across with the doggone things that really make a lot of sense. But I've seen leaders and I've counseled a couple of CEOs on this when they call junior associate into the office and say, well, what do you think about so and so? And so starts, or about this situation, and he starts to talk, and he goes, oh no, come on, that makes no sense at all. Patient, calm yourself, listen to the whole thing, and after after they're finished speaking, count to five. Do not be quick to respond. Count to five. Two reasons. When you're silent, sometimes, oh, maybe I missed something, and they drill down a little bit deeper. They're not sure what you're thinking, and they may even tell you more stuff that's good. But if you don't count to five, you may pull that trigger too fast, and you're not really thinking about it. That's the other part. Think before you speak. Leonardo da Vinci said people look without seeing, touch without feeling, move without physical awareness, inhale without smelling, eat without tasting, look without seeing, hear without listening. And that's the biggest thing. If you can listen to people and you can tell and you can decipher what they're saying, you're already, miles ahead of most people, most of the leaders I've been around. So that listening skill is a big. I keep coming back to that.
Thank you for emphasizing that.
Mhm. Okay.
You also mentioned that football helped you in your leadership and having a positive attitude. So could you explain how that helped?
Absolutely, positively. I went through the United States Naval Academy, and I was fortunate to. I was a walk-on the football team, uh, and 3 years later, I was a co-captain, and I made All-American. Uh, One of the things I found with the football is has a lot to do with your attitude. When you get stomped by a team like Michigan or or like Pittsburgh, or Penn State, it hurts. It hurts to get up and go to practice that Monday morning. But you find out that if you maintain a positive attitude and keep a positive outlook, you can blow over that. You know, like I say, here's a dollar, buy a bridge, get over it. Find out what you did wrong, find out how you can do better. Now, some of these teams are just flat out much more greater than we were. They had guys that were like I looked up and looked like a tree stump. I mean, they were huge, and they were there to play football, not to go to the United States Naval Academy to earn a degree and then go to sea and defend the nation. They had one focus, and so they had an advantage on that because they had more focused time to do what they're doing. If you don't have a positive attitude, it's very easy, and I learned from again for football to say, "Oh man, I'm never going to be able to do this because I don't have bop 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 bop." Conversely, if you say, I can do it, I'll figure out what I have done wrong and keep that positive attitude going. My senior year, we won 4 out of 11 games. Terrible. I was the only starter my senior year that came back. And there's maybe one or two other guys, and the rest of the team were rookies just stepping onto the field. Had my attitude not been positive, the first thing I would have done was say, I'm done. I can't do this. Is hurting me, hurting my reputation, is not doing the academy any good. No, instead rallied with the team. They got the positive attitude burn. They got the feeling that they could do stuff. And although every now and then we got stomped and we got stomped, um, we always bounced back from it. And the biggest bounce back was, Army Navy is a big thing with the Navy and the Army, and having that positive attitude there going into that final game having won only 3 games at that time, it's very easy to say, oh man, this isn't going to work. No, we say vision what you want, target it, and then stay focused. And once you have that focus on the horizon or that star on the horizon, you may not get there, but you're headed in the right direction. Positive mental attitude has a lot to do with it. And again, mine really came in while I was playing football at the Naval Academy.
I've talked to some other entrepreneurs as well who've said that sports have played a huge role in having like a positive attitude and a growth mindset to always improve even though you face failures. So that's
Absolutely.
pretty amazing. Did your positive mindset start from there, or was there anything else before that helped trigger that?
Well, you gotta go all the way back to high school. Uh, the I was an athlete. I did football, wrestling, gymnastics, and track. I lettered in football, wrestling, gymnastics, and track. Uh, I was a captain or co-captain of football, wrestling, gymnastics, and track. And so this whole leadership gig was not new to me. Um, that positive attitude, when I started winning, my main sport in high school was wrestling. When I started winning, I liked it. And I liked it because, I was being myself. And my positive attitude towards winning kept compelling me to win more and to keep conditioning myself to get better. My final 2 years in high school, I wrestled 51 times. I lost one match.
Oh
I,
wow.
w- I was, in matter of fact, I went to the academy to be a wrestler, and that's another story how I got into football. Like I said, I was a walk-on, but but that you know drove my positive attitude, and I knew that if I kept thinking positive, uh, for example, before a wrestling match, you see this guy looks like a gorilla over there, and you don't want to get close to him, and you say, "That's no problem. I can take him." Is self-talk. I can take him. Yeah, I can do this. And you may get out there and get slammed the first few minutes, but if you keep positive and don't go, oh my goodness, he is what I thought. No, 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 no. You think it through, and next thing you know, you do some crazy maneuver and you're on top, and then they're raising your hand at the end. My motivation to do that came from the positive attitude.
It's great.
Hmm.
So, in 2019, you were diagnosed with cancer. And I mean, it must have been hard to keep that positive mindset there. So, could you share a bit about what those first few days or weeks were like to you and how you stayed positive throughout that?
Absolutely. Well, because of high school, because of football, and because of my character, I never had a down moment. When I was in Saudi Arabia at the time, and they thought that this cancer was emergent, and they needed to get me to a U.S. hospital for better treatment. Quite honestly, by the time I arrived, I had pneumonia. Um, the cancer had a great foothold in my body. The doctors had to play catch up, otherwise I would die. Unknowns to me, that I had the pneumonia and all this stuff before they put me in intensive care, which was the day after I arrived. I was talking to a nurse and I said, I don't know what this is, but we're going to beat this. And she looked at me like, he hasn't a clue. I said, yep, we're going to beat this. And I didn't know that I had this type of cancer. The cancer I have, 1 in a million people get. 1 in a million. I was that one. The kind of cancer I have, people live from 4 to 7 years based on which survey you go by, and normally they die within months. I didn't know that. So the only thing occupying my mind was my positive attitude that we're going to beat this. And any opportunity I had to ask them, how can I improve? How can I fight this? The nurses were kind because they said, well, you just got to keep your positive attitude there. The doctors were more blunt. You're lucky to be alive and we're going to keep you that way. So that just reinforced me saying, no, I'm sure not what it is. And then I found out what it was. Um, that was a bit of a downer for a second, but it didn't bring me down. The big downer was when they told my wife on 3 separate occasions. The third time they gave me a week to live. You talk about being down on that. Uh, my attitude was, well, that's their opinion. And guess what? I made it through. That was in 2019, November of 2019, the third time they said I was going to die, and I didn't. That positive mental attitude had a lot to do with it. Absolutely.
That's really inspiring. I mean,
Mhm,
wow.
mhm. Yeah.
You you mentioned that funding was being cut down for the medical research and that was something you were campaigning for. So could you share a bit more about that?
The government is cutting back on medical research and cancer research. Uh, they say it's to save money. Um, I think that that is not true. Uh, I think it's short-sighted because if the funding gets cut, the type of uh, procedure I went through, my clinical trial, wouldn't have been there. I mean, let's back it up. 30 years ago, the clinical trial that I went through did not exist. Only through medical research and cancer research did they find the right combination of how they can put together something to save my life, save other people's lives. Had I been 5 years earlier, say 2019, and they were cutting funding, we wouldn't be having this conversation because they did not at that time find anything uh, to fight my cancer. Uh, so through the research, they developed it. Uh, they gave me a shot at it, and at the fifth year is when I went into my clinical trial, and the things they did were absolutely phenomenal. Things that we couldn't have imagined 20, 30 years ago they were doing to keep me alive. So I'm a big proponent of research because that's how we get discovery. That's how we can save people's lives. And if you pull that lifeline away, I like to say, it's like you're taking, it's like pulling a life vest off of someone who is drowning, saying, okay, you have cancer. Yeah, you're going to die eventually. We all know it. You know it. But you know what? We don't have the money. We want to allocate it over here. That is the height of lunacy, in my opinion. And so I've written a couple of guest essays, op-eds, to express my concern and put it out there so people are aware. Some folks don't know about it. A lot of people do, but it's one thing to know about it. It's something to do something about it. Now I can't go rally up a full bunch of folks because I got my own issues. I'm still being treated, and I'm working with my kidneys are having issues from the cancer. And so the best I could do is write something to inform people, to serve my opinion. And surprisingly, a lot of folks come back to me and go, you got a very good point. Hang in there. You inspired me. You did this, you did that. And I'm going to, go to my representative and see what I can do. That makes me feel really, really, really good. But all the way back to what you're saying, the cut in funding, it's just irresponsible. And hopefully it won't, come to fruition all the way. I keep hearing, oh, they're going to keep cancer research going. They're going to, until I see it in writing and they stop talking this nonsense, I'm going to keep on my bandwagon and say, you guys have got to look at what you're doing. Some child, some mother, some father, some sister, some brother, some friend, some ally, people that don't even know would benefit from it. And if we don't have it available for them to benefit from, they're going to die. And that's the cold, hard fact of it. So if we don't keep going up that ladder as far as research, they find one solution, one treatment, and they work around and oh, they make it a little bit better. And they can make it a little bit better. And trust me, I've been in 7 hospitals, 3 ICUs. I've had a ton of treatments, and I've been through that ladder till I got to what they call CAR T therapy. That's where they take your T cells, which are your immune cells, out of your body. They ship them off to a laboratory, re-engineer them to go specifically after the cancer, give them back to you, and put it in your body. Unlike chemotherapy, it doesn't destroy, your cells, other cells. It goes right after the cancer. And when they did that to me in 2023, I had not, I didn't require any more chemotherapy at the time. I've had no chemotherapy since then. We're going on 2.5 years that the CAR T cell therapy is working. And again, that's from them going a step higher. So when I talk to my doctor and I go, well, what happens if the T cells stop performing? He goes, well, research has found, and he goes down another rabbit hole and tells me about another research project that is promising. And we won't take it back to CAR T, but they'll do something else with it. That's why it's so doggone important that we keep our focus and we do not cheat people. Basically, lawmakers are giving a death sentence to people by saying, I'm not going to allow the research to move forward that can save your life. That's the only way I can put it. They're doing a death sentence. Like I say, pulling the life jacket off of someone who's drowning for, I don't know, budget, short-sightedness, fill in the blank. That's what really annoys me, and that's what I'm kind of focused on now. And I took a step back away from being the entrepreneur. I still do leadership counseling and consulting and stuff, but one of my focuses now is why I'm here. I want to make people understand what's going on. The fact is, I am, they said I'm a miracle child. I should be dead. I've been told that many times. And the 3 times I told my wife, I should be dead. But you know what? Uh, that's okay, because when I talk to people, they can't say, what do you know? I know. Been there, done that, got the t-shirts at the postcard. I know. I'm living it. I'm not just someone who read a book and said, oh, gee whiz, yeah, we need to do that. No, I'm living it. And I've had over 300 technicians work on me. I had over 400 nurses and over 30 specialists. And talking with them, you learn a lot. So I'm trying to take in what I've learned and package it in ways that people can understand, not in doctor speak, where you got to get a medical encyclopedia to understand stuff, but in Jeffrey speak. I'm your basic model. I keep it simple, and sometimes it's kind of goofy, but I get my point across, and I think I'm helping people understand it much better.
It's amazing what you've been
Mhm.
doing. That's
Well,
great.
thank you. Thank you.
Cancer is usually an emotionally heavy topic for a lot of people, and how do you help people understand that, but also stay strong while helping people do this to make sure that people get the same treatment as you because it's people's lives at stake. How do you go through that?
One thing I got to tell you is for the kind of cancer I have, or actually just cancer, uh, 4 to 14% suffer from clinical depression. That's the challenge. When people get depressed, it's easier to want to give up. When it's easier to want to give up, quite frankly, it's easier to want to die. I do something I call cancer walk and talks, where when it hits me, or I'm waiting for my wife to come pick me up, or in the parking lot walking it, I get my phone and I do a cancer walk and talk, which is about a minute 30 seconds, minute 15 seconds, about something about the cancer that people should know and people with cancer should be aware. One of the things I just did was what was that? The fatigue, the tiredness. You ever wake up in the morning and before your feet hit the ground, you're tired? I have, and a lot of cancer patients do. When you go through that, it's easy to also say, well, gosh, I'm so tired. Uh, you get so tired, you don't want to talk to anyone. You don't want to answer the phone. I don't want to write anything. I don't want to say anything to anyone at no time because I'm just fatigued and I don't have that spirit. You need to be aware of that as a cancer survivor, that you go through that. If you're a caregiver, you need to be aware that the cancer survivor is going through it. If you're a support team, you need to be aware. If they don't respond to you or pick up the phone right away and get back to you, they're not being aloof. They just don't have it sometimes. They don't have the juice. And I have that a lot. Uh, but it doesn't last very long. It's just that my body physically does not have the juice to keep me powering through. In the morning is my best time, uh, but within 30, 40 minutes, I feel like I have liquid lead in my legs, and I don't want to do, don't want to see, don't want to eat, don't want to chat, don't want to do anything. People understand that. They can understand your dilemma, and what you're going through. And also they can try to cheer you up. One of the things, if you do know someone with cancer like that, don't ever say, I know how you feel. Please, God's sake, don't ever say that because you don't. There is so much buried inside the body, inside the mind, and what the people are going. It's almost an insult. Well, I know how you. I know exactly how you feel. No, I can imagine how you feel is better than I know how you feel, because they don't, and because of that attitude, or because I'm so tired, I'm not there to correct them and say, well, no, you don't understand A, B, C, D. No, you really don't understand. Then I come off of being bullish, I guess, being unfair, and they're going, yeah, just trying to cheer them out. So yeah, you are, but just don't say that. Let's talk about something else. But anyway, I've gone all around the circle here. I don't know how I answered your question.
You did. Thank you.
Hmm.
What advice would you give to others who might be facing battles of their own?
Research and educate yourself and be your own advocate. When the first time I went to the oncologist, and I have four of them I went through, um, and three of them I'm still with, I went like laying on the cross saying, tell me what I need to do. How does this work? Educate me. I wasn't taking responsibility on myself to look up my cancer, to look up the survival rates, to look at the symptoms, to look at the latest trends in medicine, to understand those things. To gosh, I got a lot of resources that I pick up and I review and I read to get smart. That helps you become your own advocate in a way. And instead of saying, tell me what I need to know, I can say, what do you think about this? And when they say something I don't understand, which is another point, is that you got to stop them and say, no doctor speak. What does that mean? You know, you're in trouble when they say, do you have a living will? Which I got a few times. Uh, and that's doctor speak per se. You may not be around for a while, buddy. Let's make sure that you got this thing all together. Um, an advanced directive on what you want, what are your preferences. Um, Understanding that helps me respond a little bit different to when they say something, or help me understand it. Now, I'm not saying I want them to say all roses and, perfume and everything sounds great. They need to tell it like it is, but I need to understand it like it is. Otherwise, I'm on the roller coaster. I have no control. Goes up, goes down, around, up and down. I have no control. When you do your research and you start to advocate for yourself and start to ask intelligent questions, most questions are pretty intelligent, but you want to make sure that you nail the area that you're on. Um, you find that it becomes a little bit easier to breathe, knowing where you've been, where you are, and where you're going. So educate yourself is the biggest thing I would say.
Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey. I've truly enjoyed and learned a lot from our conversation, and your journey was really inspiring. So, thank you so much for sharing your time and insights.
Thank you very much.